Hello everyone, I'm Carius, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Antos by Impulse Engineering. Yes, that's engineering, not engineering. And the Antos is a really fantastic springer that is simple, requires a lot less hardware than a lot of pump action springers. It is pretty easy to build. All the parts can be sourced on Amazon except for the main spring, which you can get on Out of Darts, and it's just a really nice, smooth pump action primary that I'm a big fan of. It's got bearings in the priming bar so that it's a lot smoother. Just the geometry of it lends to a really smooth prime. It's got a super beefy spring in it right now that I need to tone down a little bit, but even with that, it's nice and smooth. It's got a built-in barrel collet so you can easily swap barrels. It also lets you easily swap springs. The stock, oh, whoops, it just flew out. The stock, it's adjustable, that little pin that just flew out of there, and it has a quick spring swap ability. The spring I've got in it right now is some kind of Swift spring that I had lying around. Here's the packaging for it. 550, 1.6, whatever that means. It's a worker Swift spring, but I don't know what kind of specs it has. But it's pretty beefy for the Antos, and I think it's a little bit more than what I actually want to put in this thing, but I have a spring from Out of Darts that's on its way that I'm going to put in it once it actually shows up. That should put this at a reasonable FPS. Just put that back in. This is quite a beefy spring. There we go. So it's got this little piece that you can unscrew to swap springs really easily. And the stock goes over that. And you've got 4 different positions you can put the stock in with this little locking tab. I like it in the farthest back position. I find that the most comfortable, but you've got options. It does have a skinny pusher like a lot of springers do now, so you can put magazines in and out without actually priming it back. And the breech and the prime are directly linked together. There's no slop in it like in Lynx, where they're kind of 2 separate mechanisms. So you're pushing the spring back for the entire prime, and the pusher is actually going all the way back here into the plunger tube and then coming forward. It just feels really nice to prime and shoot. So my Antos is inspired by the Kintsugi Japanese pottery, where they break pottery and then repair it with the gold filling. So I saw the way this Antos shell goes together, and it kind of reminded me of that style with the cracks here. So I just leaned into it, and I took this gold nail polish that my wife had and painted these cracks on here, and I think it looks really cool. I had originally planned on doing black, white, and green, but the green filament that I had, that I've had forever, that I was going to use up, was that like 2-point-something millimeter stuff, the bigger size filament. I had no idea. I don't even know what kind of printer uses that anymore, but it's been in my basement for like years, and then I finally opened it up and was like, oh, I can't use this. It doesn't fit in any standard printer. So then I was looking at other filament I had lying around, because I had the black and white, and the only other color I had was gold. And then that gave me the idea of like, oh, okay, I can do all the little bits in gold, and then I can do this Kintsugi theme, and I actually really like how that turned out. I'm kind of glad that that green filament was the wrong size. So my Antos has a few different customizations. One really cool thing about the Antos is that it's already got a bunch of remixes on printables. People have made a bunch of different parts for it. This trigger and catch are different versions that were made by, I believe, Defiant on printables. It's got a different RAM made by Chris Chen, who adjusted it slightly so that it works with stronger spring magazines, because he was noticing some jamming with drum mags and other certain things. I've got this SCAR that Flygonial designed. That's not specifically for the Antos, but it works really well for the Antos. And I added this little part that I designed that works as a front sight post to go with Silly Butt's seagull sights that he designed a while back. I just have the back sight, and it has filament inserted in here as little sight dots, and I did the same thing up here where you got the kind of fluorescent filament in the tip. It's a lot more visible in sunlight, and it looks pretty good. Gives you a good sight picture. And this is even a little bit shorter than you would need to get an accurate sight. Like, you need another 1/4 inch on top of this. I need to adjust this part. I actually end up putting the sight, can I line this up? Yeah, here we go. I actually end up putting the sight down into the crack of the V, the first sight, and that gives me a fairly accurate shot instead of lining it up like you would expect like that. Because there's such a difference from the barrel to this raised Picatinny rail, you actually end up needing a pretty high sight if you're going to do a sight on the barrel like this. The Antos is really designed more for like a red dot sight or something that just goes on here, like a scope. But I wanted to do iron sights just cause. Ended up putting this part that fits into Flygonial's SCAR and screws onto the little adjustment piece. And it works pretty well. I'm happy with it. Priming grip is the swoopy one made by Shoeless Historian on Thingiverse. He's the guy who designed the Goblin. And I really like the grip. It's super comfortable on the Antos, and I think it looks good. My only issue with it is that it was extremely tight on the rail. I'm not sure if I would be able to get this grip off. I installed it with a hammer. These two screws that are holding it on aren't even necessary. It is so tight on that rail that like it's just one part now. So if you print this grip for a 3D printed rail, just like sand it a little bit on the inside first, try to do something so that it fits better instead of just forcing it on like I did. That's pretty much it as far as the different parts that I put onto this thing. The hardware was pretty easy to source. There's nobody reputable selling Antos kits really, especially that'll ship to the US. But it uses very basic hardware that's easy to get, and the bill of materials that Impulse provides gives you links to everything you need on Amazon. Now, if you're going to buy all of that stuff on Amazon and you don't have any of it to start with, it's going to cost you about $75 and up that to like $95 if you're buying bearings and pins for a SCAR that you've printed. But that'll give you parts enough to build, like in some cases, like infinite Antoses. Like the elastic, you could build 100 Antoses with the amount of elastic you get from Amazon from that listing. After spending that $75 on hardware, if you wanted to make a second Antos, it would cost you $25 because you'd only have to buy the plunger tube, the barrel, and more screws. Everything else you would have more than enough of. If you have M3 screws, if you have elastic, if you've got barrel material already, if you already have a SCAR, if you've got M3 nuts, if you've got a variety of O-rings that you would need, the price goes down dramatically. So for me, I already had the right screws, I already had all the O-rings I need, I already had a lot of elastic, but just to make sure that I had the right kind, I bought it on Amazon anyway. And this is how much elastic you get from that Amazon listing. You would never run out making Antoses. You only need enough to do the trigger, the catch, and the mag release. It's one of the few blasters that use elastic that I've put together that hasn't been kind of a pain to actually get the right length and tie it in the right places. The whole blaster is like a big clamshell design. It all splits apart down here. And it comes in these three sections, right kind of where I've painted these cracks. And everything prints with this surface on the print bed. So if you have a textured bed, or like one of those cool holographic beds, you can make this whole face of the blaster have that kind of texture. And you can see mine with the textured bed makes a pretty nice surface on the Antos here. For printing it, everything was pretty easy to print except for the rear part of the blaster. This back third and into the stock piece was so large that if it was another millimeter longer, it would not have fit on my print bed. And I have a Prusa Mark III, which is like average printer at this point. It's got like kind of normal bed size for a printer, and anything smaller than that, and you would not be able to print this back piece. I wish the stock kind of buffer tube area was a separate part from this piece of the shell so that it would fit on more printers. But then I don't know how you would do that and still keep the rigidity that you get from the stock being one piece. I'm sure you could figure it out, but that was a pain in the ass to print. Like going into Prusa Slicer and telling it to find an orientation to fit on the bed, it wasn't able to. I had to manually tweak it and rotate it to just be corner to corner in the perfect position to be able to print with supports. Because you do need supports because it's on this face and you have this thing floating in the air. And it was just not easy to do. So I wish those were separate. Another thing I'm not a huge fan of, honestly, is the inserts. So that has all these little parts that you print to hold the nuts in place on this side of the shell. And at that size, especially with my printer, like they just look kind of goopy and gross, and you have to glue them in place, which adds even more kind of weirdness that just like leaves things not as clean as you would like. And it leaves me wishing that there was a version of this blaster that just uses heat set inserts instead of nuts on this side of the blaster. I mean, it would add more hardware because some of this actually does need nuts on the inside, then heat sets wouldn't quite work. But for the shell, these weird nut retainers that you glue in are kind of a pain in the ass, and they don't end up looking that great, in my opinion. Just a minor nitpick. There is one optional part at the front of the blaster. There's a detent you can add that makes it so that your foregrip actually locks in place at the front, which I like, but I wonder if there is a way to do that with just the 3D printed plastic instead of requiring a detent. Like, it's the only place in the blaster that needs a detent, so it kind of ups the material cost. And you've already got kind of a 3D printed detent style piece in the stock that works pretty well. You can see this big groove in here. It allows the little nub that holds the stock in place to flex out of the way. I'm wondering why you couldn't do that same kind of design feature up on the inside of the front as the piece that keeps the handle forward when you're priming. There's just a idea. Oh, uh-oh. I've lost a screw. Where? All these screws are in here. Oh, there it is. This screw came out. Maybe I didn't tighten it enough. These screwdrivers from Silver Fox are really awesome, by the way. I bought this one at Survival Fest and have used it a lot. Okay, where was I? Things I would change. So I already covered the back end and the inserts. I also wonder if you could make a cheaper version that just had printed rollers instead of bearings up here. Of course, it wouldn't be as smooth, but you could make it even easier for people to just grab the little bit of hardware needed for this thing and print it themselves. And I feel like you would still get a little bit of a benefit from that as opposed to nothing, but it's just an idea. And the only other thing, we've got this window here in the middle, which is nice where you can see when you're loading a dart. But it's just small enough that it's really awkward to like breech load darts into it. You can do it, but it's a pain. And if this window was just a little bit bigger, it'd be super easy to just throw a dart into the breech and load it for testing and stuff when you don't have a magazine. Totally niche and unnecessary feature, but if this was just a little bit bigger, it would make that a lot easier, and I think that would be pretty cool. So when I first built this thing, I put a stock Mark IV spring in it, and that was enough to push it to 200 FPS with bamboo darts and like 170 with heavies. And that was pretty good, but as soon as I got it outside in like the heat and humidity, it started really struggling with worker darts. Like, it just didn't quite have enough power. Anything that was less than ideal was just farting out the barrel and barely making it. So now I've got this Worker Swift spring in it that I think is a little much for it. It's shooting 215 with heavies and probably 250 with bamboos at this point. And I would really like something in between, which is why I ordered a spring from Art of Darts that hasn't showed up yet, because it was waiting on my breacher kit that I also ordered. That's coming soon, by the way. So I really want something in between the two. Like, it feels a little heavy to prime right now, and the FPS is a little bit past the standard limit for ABC Nerf wars, so I would like it to be right at 200 with standard worker darts. Alright, well, let's get this thing loaded up and shoot it through the chronograph and shoot at some targets. Alright, so I've got my Antos with the 1.6 Worker Swift spring. Got 4 bamboo darts followed by 4 worker heavies. We'll see what the chronograph does. 285. 280. 285. 293. Okay, that's way more than I was expecting. That's nutty. I thought the spring was a little much. All right, with heavies, I was expecting like 215. So what do we got here? 226. 232. 211. 210. That's about what I was seeing earlier, but I hadn't tried bamboos yet, so I wasn't expecting to be scraping on 300 out of this Antos, but that Worker Swift spring is how you do it, with bamboo darts anyway. Okay, I've swapped it over to the stock Dart Zone Pro Mark IV spring. I have the same darts lined up, 4 bamboo and then 4 heavies. This is about the weakest spring that I would want to put in the Antos, I think, especially with the stock barrel from the bill of materials. I think it's a little long for a weaker spring. And that prime is incredibly smooth because it's weaker. 217 with bamboos. 210. 210 again. 217. So now we're shooting bamboos as hard as we were shooting heavies with the Swift spring. Now we go over to heavies. 173. 162. 129. Yeah. It's just a little bit underpowered, and if the dart isn't perfect, you start getting weird shots like that. 160. So it really likes bamboos. So this is a decent spring to put in if you've already upgraded a Mark IV for some reason. You have a stock Mark IV spring lying around. It'll put you right at 160, 170 with heavies and over 200 with bamboo darts. Although the consistency is not going to be super great with heavier darts. Now let's do some target shooting. All right, so we got 15 cups and 15 darts. I have no idea why these Dart Zone magazines say they only hold 12. There's a big old 12 on the magazine. And here's 15 darts, and I could probably fit a 16th in there. Weird. So I got 15 cups and 15 darts. Let's see if I can hit them from top to bottom using my janky iron sights. I'm about 30 feet away. So far, so good. Oh, 2 in a row, missed. I'm a little bit off with the sight. There we go. That's where I need to aim. Okay. I keep aiming just a little bit too high because of my sight being too short at the front. Okay, I'm out of ammo. That's pretty good. Once I figured out where to aim with these weird sights. Alright, trying one more time. 15 darts. And yeah, this is comfortably 15 heavies. The darts aren't squished or anything. Why is there a 12 printed on this magazine? Yeah, I definitely recommend just using a red dot sight or something that you can attach just to the top rail and adjust accordingly. This front sight just being stored and stuff, it's getting knocked around and twisted, so it's moving left and right, so the accuracy is not very reliable. I'm gonna try this again anyway. Well, the last few shots felt pretty good. I feel like this is user error. Also, the sight picture's not great. So if we line this up, it's not terrible, but I'm finding I have to like put the front sight like at the very bottom of the back sight and then line something into the center of the back sight while doing this. And it's a little difficult to consistently hit what I'm aiming at. It'd be way easier with a red dot. So I'll probably end up switching to something like that. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this look at the Antos. I think it's a really cool blaster, and we're only going to see more cool things that people make to customize it. It's just a really nice platform, and I'm excited to see what else comes out of it. Someone's already made a long dart, like a full-length dart version called the Longtos, which I thought was pretty funny. They just elongated the mag well, and now it'll just take regular magazines. I like having a blaster that strays a little farther from the real steel look. It looks kind of funky, like maybe a little sci-fi, and I kind of prefer it that way. I like my toys to look like toys. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, this has been Carius reminding you to have fun. Yeah? Meow? What you want? You want your food? Oh, you don't want to eat until you get more head rubs?